Lights, camera, action. Welcome back to Flick Flash. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving deep into the gritty, chaotic world of MobLand, Season 1. From shocking betrayals to unexpected deaths, this show had everything. Crime, power plays, and characters you never knew you could love or hate. Whether you're catching up or refreshing your memory before Season 2, this full recap will break down every major twist, plotline, and jaw-dropping moment from Episode 1 to Episode 10. So grab a seat, hit that like button, and let's revisit the brutal rise and fall inside the Harrigan crime empire. The premiere of MobLand throws viewers into the brutal and stylish depths of London's criminal underworld. The story begins with Harry D'Souza, Tom Hardy, the go-to fixer for the infamous Harrigan crime family, brokering peace between two rival gangs, the Dogans and the Lazuros. Though Harry manages to secure a handshake, the lack of genuine remorse between the gangs spells trouble. Pierce Brosnan plays Conrad Harrigan, the calculating and cold patriarch of the Harrigan Empire. After hearing about the failed truce, he orders Harry to eliminate both groups. "Prune the rotten fruit," he says, and Harry delivers, orchestrating a massacre that reasserts the Harrigans' dominance in one swift, violent move. 2. The next generation's recklessness. The episode quickly contrasts the Harrigans' cold professionalism with the recklessness of the next generation. Eddie Harrigan, Anson Boone, Conrad's spoiled grandson, parties with Tommy Stevenson, son of rival boss Richie Stevenson, Jeff Bell. Despite their families being in a delicate truce, the young men disregard the consequences of their actions. Things spiral out of control when Eddie, in a fit of arrogance, stabs a club patron named Huey. It's a thoughtless act of violence that risks sparking a new war between the families. 3. Damage control. Harry is called in to clean up Eddie's mess. His efficiency and ruthlessness as a fixer are on full display. He pressures the club owner into deleting CCTV footage, intimidates Huey into silence, and disposes of the evidence, including Eddie's clothes, by hiding them in a coffin about to be buried. It's a textbook cover-up. However, Tommy Stevenson goes missing after the incident, which puts the Stevensons on high alert. Richie Stevenson begins suspecting foul play and makes it clear that he won't stand idly by if his son has been harmed. 4. Escalating tensions. Richie confronts Kevin Harrigan, Patty Considine, Eddie's father, and demands answers. A meeting is arranged at Moody's gym, a neutral location long used by the families for negotiations. There, Richie gives Harry a deadline: find Tommy or prepare for war. Back at the Harrigan estate, the family strategizes. Harry suggests killing Richie as a preemptive measure, but Conrad and his wife Maeve, Helen Mirren, urge caution. They want more information before making a move that could plunge them into all-out conflict. 5. Family drama and personal struggles. In the midst of the criminal chaos, the episode also offers glimpses into Harry's personal life. His wife Jan, Joan Froggatt, pushes for couples therapy, clearly exhausted by his dangerous lifestyle and emotional unavailability. Harry is torn between his duties to the Harrigans and his disintegrating marriage. Meanwhile, we see signs of discord within the Harrigan leadership. Conrad announces a plan to expand into the fentanyl trade, a risky move that could destabilize the entire criminal ecosystem. Longtime family friend and advisor Archie, Alex Jennings, voices strong objections. Maeve accuses him of betrayal. In a shocking twist, Conrad coldly executes Archie in front of the family. The message is clear: loyalty is absolute. In Episode 2 of MobLand, titled Jigsaw Puzzle, the show ramps up the intensity as the precarious peace between the Harrigan and Stevenson crime families starts to crumble. The episode is a slow burn, filled with suspicion, betrayal, and looming violence, and it culminates in a brutal act that all but guarantees a gang war. Tensions rise. The disappearance of Tommy Stevenson. The central mystery of Episode 2 revolves around the disappearance of Tommy Stevenson, the wildcard son of Richie Stevenson. Tommy was last seen partying with Eddie Harrigan, who is notorious for his recklessness. Eddie shows up the next morning covered in blood and incoherent, raising serious concerns about Tommy's fate. Though Eddie insists he can't remember what happened, His involvement is undeniable. The Harrigans, especially Kevin and Harry, now have to figure out how to contain the fallout. Tommy's father, Richie Stevenson, suspects foul play immediately and begins pressuring the Harrigans for answers. This increases the heat between the two families, pushing their fragile truce to the edge. The disappearance becomes the catalyst for everything that follows. Harry's arrest and police interference. Meanwhile, Harry D'Souza, the Harrigan family's loyal enforcer, is arrested by the police in a raid led by DS Ivan Fisk. Fisk tries to break Harry, pushing him to give up dirt on the Harrigans. But Harry, experienced and unshakable, doesn't flinch. He knows O'Hara, the family's lawyer, will get him out quickly, which he does. This moment hints at two important things. The police are closing in, and there might be an informant feeding them insider knowledge. The possibility of a mole within the Harrigans adds a chilling layer of paranoia. Harry and O'Hara begin to suspect someone is leaking information to the cops. Surprisingly, Maeve Harrigan, the matriarch, becomes a subject of suspicion. Though nothing is confirmed, her constant behind-the-scenes maneuvering and secret conversations suggest she may be playing her own game. Eddie on the run. In the wake of Tommy's disappearance, the Harrigans decide Eddie needs to lie low, both for his safety and for damage control. Kevin arranges for Eddie to be taken to the Cotswolds, but Richie Stevenson's men aren't far behind. The chase scenes and tense car rides during this portion of the episode highlight how dangerous the situation has become. The Harrigans aren't just dealing with the police, they're being hunted by rivals who want blood. Harry's personal turmoil. Amidst the chaos, Harry is also dealing with problems at home. His wife, Jan, is threatening to leave him, and their daughter Gina is caught in the middle of a crumbling family. Jan knows more than she lets on, about the family business and about the violence that surrounds them. Harry tries to reassure her, but he's losing control of both his personal life and the war brewing outside. Harry also reconnects with Isabella, Kevin's wife, hinting at an unresolved tension or possible past between them. These small emotional beats give depth to Harry's character. He's more than a cold fixer. He's a man being pulled apart at every seam. The violent ending, Harry versus Valjean. The episode ends with an explosive act of violence that changes everything. Harry tracks down Valjean, one of the Stevenson family's key operatives, at a nightclub. Without hesitation, Harry beats Valjean nearly to death, making it very clear. The Harrigans are done playing nice. This moment is brutal and personal. Harry doesn't just rough Valjean up, he sends a message. This beating is the end of diplomacy. It's the beginning of war. By taking matters into his own hands, Harry knowingly escalates tensions to the point of no return. The Stevenson family won't let the assault on Valjean go unanswered. And if they believe the Harrigans are responsible for Tommy's disappearance or death, the retaliation will be swift and merciless. What happens to Tommy? One of the most chilling threads left dangling is Tommy's fate. While it's strongly implied that Eddie might have killed him, accidentally or otherwise, nothing is confirmed. The ambiguity is deliberate. Tommy's uncertain fate not only raises the stakes for everyone involved, but also keeps viewers guessing. If Tommy is dead, the Stevensons will go to war. If he's alive and hiding, his reappearance could change the game entirely. The Plan B episode of MobLand, which begins with a physical explosion, intensifies the lethal rivalry between the Stevensons and the Harrigans. The long-simmering conflict erupts as both families go to great lengths to defend their own. Loyalty is put to the test, violence intensifies, and the real power brokers show themselves with every second. The start of Richie's retaliation. Richie Stevenson's aggressive act of bombing Kevin Harrigan's house opens the episode. It is the first significant act of war, but no one is hurt. When Harry D'Souza recognizes the danger, he promptly takes his daughter Gina and wife Jan to safety. He conceals them aboard a boat that belongs to his eccentric colleague Mike by using his connections and astute judgment. Richie sends masked assassins after Harry in the meantime, but Harry uses his characteristic confidence and a strategic phone call to Conrad Harrigan to defuse the situation. For the time being, The assassins are persuaded to retreat in order to prevent a carnage. The real story of Tommy. As Harry investigates Tommy Stevenson's disappearance further, the tension keeps growing. Harry finds out that Tommy is dead, and worse, that Eddie Harrigan might be the murderer, after he viciously attacks the club boss Valjean. Before paying Valjean $10,000 to conceal the body, Eddie stabbed Tommy numerous times, according to Valjean. Kevin and Harry put pressure on Valjean to take the fall in order to avert a full-scale conflict. They guarantee his family's safety in return. Knowing that Richie will pursue his children if he doesn't comply, Valjean reluctantly consents. Maeve's perilous impact. Maeve, the matriarch, is still enforcing her perverse beliefs at the Harrigan estate. She maintains that Eddie is the legitimate successor to the Harrigan family's legacy, even in spite of his violent behavior. Her fixation on pure blood causes her to disparage Brendan, Conrad's underachieving son, and Serafina, his daughter from an affair. Maeve meddles in more than just domestic affairs. She forces Conrad to adopt more forceful tactics, even proposing that Richie's daughter Vron be killed in order to heighten hostilities. She's one of the most deadly characters in the series because of her desire for power, which leads to anarchy. Pressure from the police and internal betrayal. As all of this is going on, Detectives Fisk and Misaka get an enigmatic anonymous tip regarding the whereabouts of the body of Archie Hammond, a colleague Conrad murdered in Episode 1. Only a select handful were aware that his body had been surreptitiously interred in the coffin of another man. A significant twist is revealed by this development. Information is being leaked by someone in the Harrigans' inner circle. It's unclear who it is: Brendan, Serafina, Bella, or perhaps Harry. However, it is evident that family trust is quickly eroding. Bella's covert plan. Another level of intrigue is added by Bella Harrigan. She sets up a meeting between Antoine, a Frenchman, and her influential father, Lord Pennock. Antoine covertly records the meeting in order to gain access to the Prime Minister. The gang battle that is going on around her is not nearly as dangerous as the political trap that Bella is stuck in. Harry agrees to handle Antoine and get the video when she later confesses to him. Bella is clearly playing a high-stakes game that could endanger the entire family, even though her exact motivations are still unknown. Harry's memories and previous trauma. At a more subdued storyline, Harry assists his housekeeper Maria by arranging a place for her mother at a care facility. He encounters an elderly man there who brings back unpleasant recollections of mistreatment from his days in juvenile jail. Harry's darker past and the reasons behind his current precision and control are hinted at in this fleeting moment. MobLand raises the stakes in London's criminal underbelly in its suspenseful 4th edition, exposing betrayals, plots, and covert objectives that might break the Harrigan crime empire apart. A number of significant plot lines are revealed in Episode 4, which links prior choices to the current instability and raises troubling concerns about who is actually in control. This episode might be the show's most complex and perilous hour to date because of its incisive writing, powerful performances, and building tension. The first move of Harry in the Sting video. Harry deals with unresolved business at the beginning of the episode. In order to obtain all copies of the incriminating Sting tape featuring Lord Pennock, he locates Antoine, the dubious Frenchman from the previous week. Overconfident and arrogant, Antoine thinks that money can fix the issue. He believes he can buy Harry's silence by offering him a payment of £40,000. However, he obviously underestimates the person he is interacting with. Harry makes it apparent that devotion to the Harrigans comes before all else by refusing the money and shoving it back in Antoine's face. But the fact that there are other versions of the tape and that Antoine acts strangely makes one wonder. For whom is Antoine actually employed? Does he work as a freelance troublemaker, or has he been employed to cause strife among the Harrigans? Conrad and Jan, an imminent time bomb. Jan, meantime, becomes more and more concerned about her family's role in this criminal underworld. When she complains about Harry's secrecy and distance during a therapy session, her annoyance explodes. However, therapy is not as secure as it may appear, particularly if you're married to a Harrigan enforcer. Conrad, who is secretly keeping a tight eye on her, visits her soon after she goes for a stroll with her therapist friend Alice. Conrad's caution is terrifying. He tells Jan to stop asking questions and reminds her of Harry's responsibilities to the Harrigans. Although he speaks in a calm tone, the danger is clear. Harry's worry is evident when he learns of Conrad's visit later. And it brings up a crucial question. Will Harry remain loyal to the Harrigans if he finds out that Conrad intimidated, or worse, his wife? Maeve's web starts to open. What fans have been speculating about for weeks is finally confirmed in this episode. Eddie, Tommy's impetuous grandson, and Maeve, the crafty matriarch, plan Tommy's murder. Frustrated by Conrad's growing dependence on outsiders, especially Harry, to manage the company, Maeve has been secretly planning to upend the family structure. She has a definite objective: either make Conrad take charge once more or have Eddie take his place. However, when this idea becomes clearer, flaws are also exposed. Eddie is too impetuous and hot-headed to be the steady leader the family needs. Maeve may believe that she is in charge, but once Eddie gains authority, there's a good chance he will lose control and bring the Harrigans down with him. When a body is discovered, suspicions start to grow. When authorities find Archie's body, the situation becomes more sinister. Conrad and Harry are the only ones who know where it was buried, which raises suspicion right away. Maeve takes advantage of the situation to make Conrad question everything. Is Harry collaborating with law enforcement? Is he the rat? Conrad still doesn't think Maeve is real. However, the doubt has been sown. It's only a matter of time until someone pulls the trigger. As anyone in the criminal world knows, once trust begins to disintegrate. The Rusby Ghost. Kevin's unspoken anguish. Kevin shares details of his background with Harry in a rare display of vulnerability. He divulges unsettling information on the twisted dynamic that emerged inside the family and Conrad's previous relationship with Bella, Kevin's partner. Kevin found out from Maeve and Bella herself that Bella had once been one of Conrad's lovers. The emotional harm still exists even though Bella and Kevin remain together. The more significant revelation, however, occurs when Harry mentions Rusby, a cruel jail warden from their history. Although Kevin acts as though he doesn't recall the man, viewers eventually find out that he does. He cannot face the depth of the trauma. Harry wants to make amends for Rusby's maltreatment of him while he was in juvenile jail, but Kevin is still troubled and refuses to confront the hurt. Enter Donnie. There's a new danger ahead. Donnie, a newcomer, shows up at Zoja's garage and says he knows Harry. Despite Zoja's bewilderment, he leaves a number and strikes a confident photo pose. Harry doesn't remember anything when he hears about it. Is he lying, though? Although it's unknown if Donnie is a longtime foe or a new player joining the game, many sources refer to him as Harry's adversary. There is no denying that Donnie's appearance is not coincidental. He is here for a reason, and he will be a key player in the upcoming fight. Alice revealed, the mole right in front of you. We discover that Alice, Jan's support group acquaintance, is actually an undercover police officer collaborating with DS Fisk, returning to the therapy plotline. She is obtaining information on the Harrigans by utilizing her relationship with Conrad, who has developed feelings for her. However, it's a risky game. Alice will not survive if Conrad discovers her true identity. The already intricate web of deceit and devotion is made much more intriguing by this undercover investigation. Harry and Bella's tense reunion. When Harry goes to see Bella to deliver the memory stick, their chat soon becomes tense. When Harry objects, Bella reminds him of his position in the family hierarchy and insists on carrying on working with Antoine. He runs into Kevin on his way out, who is coming to visit Bella. Harry tells a falsehood to allay suspicions, claiming he came to tell Bella to move for her own safety. However, there's a lot of subtext at this moment. Bella's unwillingness to go could cause problems, and Kevin could not completely trust either of them. The funeral invitation and the kill. Harry and Richie meet in the latter act of the episode. Richie insists that Harry murder Valjean in order to demonstrate that he is not defending him or the Harrigans. Harry offers to clean up the mess after repeatedly stabbing him in compliance. Although it's a cruel act, it buys him and the Harrigans time. But Richie isn't finished yet. He wants Tommy's burial to be attended by the Harrigans. It's a power move. It will appear to be an admission of guilt if they fail to appear. They might stroll right into an ambush if they do. Richie is maintaining the advantage in any case. The final judgment. Episode 5 of MobLand Season 1, titled Funeral for a Friend, slows down the explosions and shootouts to give us a more psychological and strategic look at the mob war between the Harrigans and the Stevensons. With Tommy Stevenson's death confirmed, this episode becomes a study in grief, loyalty, survival, and betrayal. Every character wears a mask, some mourning, others plotting. The funeral becomes less about honoring the dead and more about securing the living. It's gathering at the Stevenson residence. Conrad, Kevin, Harry, Richie, Ollie, and Charlie come together to discuss Tommy's death. Kevin and Harry enter the room, fully expecting trouble from Richie, but what follows is more calculated. Richie first throws in a seemingly random remark about Israel and Palestine's conflict, which Conrad coldly brushes off. However, Richie's real agenda surfaces quickly. He knows Eddie killed Tommy, not Valjean. Yet, instead of demanding blood, Richie lays down a chilling ultimatum. Eddie must stay hidden forever. If Eddie shows up anywhere, Richie promises he'll end him. Though Conrad doesn't verbally accept, it's clear he has no choice but to obey. Tommy's funeral, a show of strength and strategy. The entire episode orbits around Tommy's funeral, but it's anything but a solemn affair. Richie Stevenson uses it as a stage to showcase his strength. He demands the Harrigans attend, framing it as a loyalty test. Their presence would either mean respect or fear. The Harrigans, knowing that skipping it would spark all-out war, reluctantly show up. The tension in the church is so thick it's almost suffocating. Every handshake, every sideways glance, every whispered condolence carries the weight of possible violence. Richie stands tall, watching them like a hawk. He doesn't need to say much. His mere presence and cold stares deliver the message. I know one of you killed my son, and I'll find out who. Harry and Kevin, plotting an escape. Amid the funeral's icy atmosphere, Harry D'Souza and Kevin Harrigan quietly plot their exit from this deadly chessboard. Both are tired, not just of the constant fear, but of the inevitable collapse they see coming. Harry, who has always operated on the edge of morality, now seriously considers leaving the life behind. Kevin, too, realizes that loyalty to family could cost him his life. Their whispered conversation outside the church revolves around escape routes, money stashes, and the terrifying possibility that neither of them can ever truly leave. Kevin's guilt over Tommy's death, indirect though it might be, eats at him. Meanwhile, Harry fears Maeve's growing ruthlessness and Eddie's uncontrollable rage. Staying means death. Running means betrayal. It's a no-win situation, and they both know it. Richie Stevenson, mastermind at work. Richie doesn't waste a second during the funeral. Every encounter is deliberate. Every word is a trap. He pressures the Harrigans subtly, dropping hints that he already knows where the betrayal came from. His goal isn't immediate revenge, it's destabilization. By stoking their paranoia, he hopes the Harrigans will turn on each other, saving him the trouble of starting a full-blown war. Richie plays the long game here, and it's terrifying because he's so good at it. By the end of the funeral, several Harrigan members are already doubting each other. Seeds have been planted, and Richie knows it's only a matter of time before they bloom into betrayal. Maeve strikes, Vron's fiery end. Meanwhile, Maeve Harrigan makes a fatal move. Believing Vron drugged her at a party, even though it was actually her own son who handed her the drink, Maeve orders Paul to rig Vron's car with a bomb. As Vron unknowingly starts her car the next day, it explodes in a brutal Godfather-style scene. Vron is dead, and with that, Maeve has effectively ignited the gang war that had been brewing. The Harrigans are no longer just surviving, they're attacking. Maeve's impulsive, vengeful behavior shows how personal grudges are fueling the bigger conflict, even when logic and strategy beg for restraint. Brendan and Serafina, risky deals over rubies. On a quieter front, Brendan tries to rebuild his reputation by teaming up with Serafina for a shady business venture involving rubies from Mozambique. Brendan tries to impress her with rare gems and flashy wine-tasting antics. But Serafina sees through his desperation. She agrees to get involved, but only if she gets a 75% cut of the profits. Brendan reluctantly accepts. However, there's an ominous feeling hanging over this deal. It could very well backfire, dragging both Brendan and Serafina deeper into dangerous waters. Harry's risky gamble, smuggling arms. Behind the scenes, Harry takes a massive gamble. He meets secretly with Freddie, one of Richie's men, at a pub. Harry blackmails Freddie into helping him smuggle weapons into the Stevenson home during the wake, using proof of Freddie's secret affair with Vron as leverage. Thanks to Freddie's cooperation, Harry manages to plant arms in a hidden spot, giving the Harrigans an advantage if things go south. It's a daring, risky move that could have easily ended in disaster, but for now, works in Harry's favor. Family tensions. Kevin, Harry, and Eddie's fractures. The Harrigan family dynamic grows more toxic by the minute. While Maeve and Eddie fan the flames of conflict by provoking Vron at the funeral, deeper issues simmer underneath. Kevin and Harry are both grappling with past trauma, particularly around their brutal experiences in juvenile detention, and unfortunately, they're channeling their pain into controlling and toughening up Eddie. Their rough treatment only pushes Eddie closer to Maeve's manipulative influence. Ironically, there's a theory brewing that Eddie might actually be Harry's son, making their strained relationship even more tragic. As tensions flare during the wake, Kevin drugs Maeve's champagne to put her out of action, while Harry tries convincing Eddie to leave. Richie, however, blocks their exit, setting the stage for even bigger chaos. Episode 6 of MobLand, titled Antwerp Blues, picks up the fallout from last week's explosive twist, literally. Vron Stevenson is dead, blown up in a car bombing outside her own home. The shockwaves of this murder echo through the city's underworld, setting the stage for all-out war between the Harrigans and the Stevensons. Richie grieves in silence. The Harrigans scramble to spin narratives, and betrayals begin to stack like dominoes. Richie's silence speaks louder than words. The episode opens on Richie in mourning, sitting alone with photos of Tommy and Vron. He doesn't speak, but the pain in his eyes says everything. After watching the two people he loved most murdered, first his son, then his wife, Richie is no longer trying to keep the peace. He's processing loss in silence, but that silence is loaded. This is the moment, the calm before the storm becomes lethal. A scramble for safety. As the news spreads, Harry is in the middle of a cryptic conversation with a man named Donnie, who brings up Cat McAllister, a name that clearly rattles Harry. The implication is that there's history there, perhaps a secret tied to Harry's past. Before he can dig further, he learns of Ron's death and immediately switches to crisis mode. He tells Kevin to take Bella and Eddie to the Cotswolds, then rushes off to retrieve Jan and Gina. With war looming, survival becomes the first priority. Conrad claims responsibility. Back at the Harrigan house, Conrad holds a family meeting and drops a bomb of his own. He confesses to ordering Vron's assassination. He claims he did it because Richie insulted him during the wake. But this explanation doesn't hold water. What's more disturbing is the fact that the bomb was placed in Vron's car 7 days ago, meaning this wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was calculated and deliberate. Even more telling is the way Maeve looks at him, suggesting it was actually her call, and Conrad is covering for her once again. Kevin's frustration with a dying empire. Kevin, perhaps the only voice of reason in the Harrigan household, calls out the madness. He reminds everyone that they've burned bridges with key allies, especially the Mexicans. By killing Archie, they're linked to the cartel. Conrad brushes it off, still believing he's leading with strength. But as Kevin points out, the Harrigans aren't a powerful empire anymore. They're crumbling, and instead of fixing their internal rot, they're starting wars they can't win. The call that changes everything. Richie calls. Harry answers and passes the phone to Conrad, Maeve, and Eddie. One by one, they take turns mocking Richie. Conrad threatens to feed Vron's remains to wild dogs. Eddie confesses to killing Tommy and laughs about it. O'Hara nervously hopes this isn't being recorded. And then Richie finally speaks. Just one word: run. That single word is more terrifying than any of the Harrigan's bravado. Richie isn't posturing. He's calculating. And he's coming. Serafina and Brendan's Antwerp adventure. Meanwhile in Belgium, Serafina and Brendan are working on a high-stakes ruby deal. Serafina, ever the sharp operator, refuses to follow the seller's rules. She negotiates hard, demands that the exchange take place without a deposit, and hires private security from her Antwerp contact, Lorenzo. In return for this expensive arrangement, she increases her share of the profits to 90%, leaving Brendan with just 10%. Brendan, desperate for approval from his grandfather Conrad, agrees without question. Maeve's ruthless betrayal. Back in the Cotswolds, Maeve proves just how far she's willing to go. She proposes that they sacrifice Serafina to Richie as a peace offering, as long as Brendan is left unharmed. Why? Because Maeve hates Serafina and views her as expendable. Brendan, on the other hand, is her golden boy. She calls Richie herself and gives away Serafina and Brendan's location, handing him the upper hand. What's maddening is that this wasn't necessary. The Harrigans didn't need a reason to kill Tommy or Vron, but now Maeve is inventing moral justification to continue this war. It's manipulative and short-sighted. Richie doesn't question it yet, but we're left wondering how someone so calculating could fall for such a clumsy trap. Harry's race against time. Harry, now in Antwerp, tracks down Lorenzo and gets Serafina's location from him. He jumps on a stolen superbike and speeds toward the rendezvous point, hoping to stop the carnage. It's a cinematic moment straight out of an action thriller. But despite his urgency, he's too late to prevent what's already in motion. The warehouse shootout. Inside a grim-looking warehouse, the ruby exchange seems to be going smoothly. The money checks out. The rubies are legit. But just as the deal concludes, gunmen storm the building and unleash a hail of bullets. Everyone inside is gunned down, except Serafina and Brendan, who manage to survive the massacre. Brendan, terrified, panics and wets himself. Serafina, however, remains composed. This wasn't a random ambush. Richie clearly orchestrated the attack, but deliberately spared them. Why? Because now he holds all the cards. He can use Serafina and Brendan as leverage. Maeve's plan backfires spectacularly, and Richie ends up with 2 bargaining chips instead of 1. The women of MobLand, wasted potential. While the men plot wars and commit atrocities, the women in MobLand remain oddly interchangeable. Bella flirts with gangster life one moment and fears it the next. Jan seems to be the only one with consistent principles. And Serafina, despite her business skills, feels more like a tool for plot movement than a fully fleshed-out character. For a show with such a strong cast, MobLand is still failing to give its women the depth they deserve. MobLand's 7th episode takes the war between the Harrigans and Richie to a horrifying new level, and there's no turning back from here. Picking up right where episode 6 left off, with Brendan and Serafina kidnapped during a ruby deal in Antwerp. The episode plunges us into full-blown chaos as alliances fracture, secrets unravel, and long-awaited debts come due. Antwerp ambush fallout. Harry races to the warehouse where Brendan and Serafina were last seen, but it's too late. The place is littered with dead bodies and smeared with a chilling message written in blood. War. Who exactly carried out this assault isn't immediately clear, but Harry suspects a Moroccan gang known as El Yufsi, who operate the Antwerp docks. While Richie had ordered Jamie from the Mexican cartel to act, Jamie outsourced the hit to the Moroccans. The plan worked. Brendan and Serafina are gone. Harry alerts the Harrigans, who are holed up in their countryside fortress, only to find themselves at the center of an escalating war they didn't see coming. Maeve's master plan implodes. Back at the mansion, Maeve feigns shock at the kidnapping, though she's secretly responsible for tipping off Richie in the first place. She reaches out to him to confirm their deal, Brendan's life in exchange for Serafina's. But Richie has had enough. He sarcastically brushes off her threats and hangs up, signaling that he never intended to honor the arrangement. Maeve's belief that she could outwit Richie is her undoing. She underestimated the consequences of provoking a grieving father, and now her so-called Queen's Gambit might cost the Harrigans everything. Conrad, meanwhile, begins wondering how their enemies knew about Brendan and Seraphina's Antwerp trip. Maeve continues to dodge suspicion, but O'Hara, their family lawyer, delivers a stark warning. Someone inside the family is leaking intel. Eddie and Gina, a manipulative romance? Meanwhile, Eddie is cozying up to Gina, Harry's daughter. Their interactions begin with vulnerability, shared trauma, and Irish coffees by the pond, but it quickly evolves into something more intimate. While Gina is smart enough to call out Eddie's manipulative behavior, she still ends up kissing him. The motivations behind this sudden chemistry are murky. Is Eddie truly interested, or is Maeve pulling the strings again, using Gina as leverage to control Harry? For Gina, it may just be survival. She knows what Eddie's capable of and could be playing along to protect herself and her mother. But if this is all part of Maeve's larger scheme, she's once again underestimating her enemies, and that rarely ends well. Jan's risky friendship. Jan, on the other hand, is being played by Alice, a seemingly fragile woman who's actually working with Detective Fisk. After Alice performs an Oscar-worthy sob story over the phone, Jan sneaks out to meet her, despite strict orders to stay inside the safe house. What she doesn't know is that the police are monitoring her every move. Jan may have become an unintentional informant, and Paul, one of the Harrigans' most loyal men, is catching on quickly. This subplot raises serious questions. Is Jan the rat in the family? Or is she just another pawn being exploited by more cunning players? Bella's risky business. Bella continues to pursue her shady business deal with Antoine, ignoring Harry's advice to back off. Given how little we know about Antoine, this feels like another impending disaster. Bella's desire to prove herself within the Harrigan Empire could cost her more than she realizes. Kevin's personal demons. Kevin, meanwhile, is dealing with personal trauma. After years of suppressing his pain, he gets his hands on the address of Rusby, the man who abused him in juvenile detention. While this might seem unrelated, Kevin's emotional baggage is affecting his judgment. Stepping away from the battlefield now to chase old ghosts could make the family more vulnerable than ever. The brutal execution. The climax of the episode is absolutely gut-wrenching. Brendan and Seraphina are shown tied to chairs in a dark warehouse, held by Jamie and his cartel. Richie, the Harrigans, and the hostages are all connected via video call. Seraphina tries to negotiate their freedom, but Jamie isn't interested in bribes. He wants revenge for the insults Conrad hurled at his father years ago. As the executioner fires up a chainsaw, the family watches helplessly. Brendan is butchered in front of them, and it's as horrifying as it sounds. Daniel Bett's final performance as Brendan is equal parts heartbreaking and absurd, especially when he quips about peeing himself during the abduction. Dark humor aside, his death marks a major turning point in the series. Cat McAllister enters the game. Just when all hope seems lost, Harry makes a desperate call to a mysterious figure, Cat McAllister. Played by Janet McTeer, Cat is revealed to be a powerful underworld figure with the influence to stop even a Mexican cartel hit. From a private jet, she calls Jamie and commands him to halt the execution. She's too late to save Brendan, but Seraphina's life is spared, for now. No one knows why Cat stepped in or what her connection to Harry is. Did he once work for her? Does he owe her a life debt? Whatever the case, this favor isn't coming for free, and Harry knows it. MobLand Season 1, Episode 8, titled Helter Skelter, might appear less action-packed on the surface, but it's rich with betrayal, psychological warfare, and shifting power dynamics. With only 2 episodes left, this one positions several characters for an inevitable showdown, while leaving us questioning loyalties and motives across the board. Brendan's death and Seraphina's return. We begin in the aftermath of Brendan's brutal death. Seraphina, saved in the nick of time by Harry, is brought back to the Cotswolds. But her return comes at a cost. Harry now owes Cat McAllister another favor, making his connection to her even more dangerous. Conrad and Maeve grieve Brendan by reminiscing about his birth. It's a poetic moment, but hollow in light of how they treated him while he was alive. Brendan was mocked and belittled, never molded into the leader they wanted. The irony is painful. Only in death do they seem to recognize his worth. Meanwhile, Serafina is emotionally broken and blames herself for her brother's death. Kevin tries to reassure her, explaining that she couldn't have known about the danger they were walking into. The real issue lies in how the Harrigans deliberately kept her and Brendan in the dark. They paid the price for someone else's manipulation, Maeve's motives and Serafina's fate. Maeve puts on a sympathetic front and takes Serafina away to rest and recover. However, this is the last time Serafina is seen in the episode. Maeve later claims that Serafina, under sedation, muttered something about being number one, a supposed admission that she leaked information to Richie. Given Maeve's manipulative history and open contempt for Serafina, it's not a stretch to think she may have killed her off-screen. It's a chilling theory that remains unconfirmed but heavily implied. This could be one of the biggest shocks reserved for Episode 9. Harry's connection to Kat. When Kevin and Conrad question how Harry secured Serafina's release, he reveals he contacted Kat McAllister. Both men are disturbed. Conrad clearly has some sort of past with Kat, and he dismisses Kevin to have a one-on-one talk with Harry. Harry offers only vague answers. He says he keeps potential exit strategies close, and Kat is one of them. But he avoids revealing the true depth of his relationship with her. This only fuels suspicion. The fact that Harry never told Conrad about Kat approaching him 2 years ago raises the possibility that he has his own plans, ones that don't involve the Harrigans. Harry and Eddie clash. Kevin tells Harry that Gina is romantically involved with Eddie. Harry confronts Eddie, who arrogantly acts like he's invincible. But Harry defuses the situation by pretending not to care. As long as Eddie respects Gina, it's a moment of calm that doesn't last long. As Eddie breathes a sigh of relief, Harry returns with a brutal promise. He'll help Eddie rise to power just to throw him off the top. It's a chilling line that shakes Eddie and hints at Harry's long-term plans. He isn't reacting emotionally, he's strategizing. Eddie's parentage and Maeve's favoritism. A subtle revelation drops when Maeve refers to Eddie as Kevin's other brother. This implies Eddie may not be Kevin's son at all. He might be Conrad's illegitimate child. If true, this changes everything. It would explain why Maeve showers Eddie with attention while detesting Serafina, who is also Conrad's child. Maeve's selective acceptance may stem from racism, elitism, or personal vendettas. The double standard is glaring and reveals much about her character. Tattersall enters the scene. A new player arrives, former Deputy Chief Inspector Colin Tattersall, played by Toby Jones. He joins forces with Fisk and Mikasa in the investigation, but quickly takes control. He proposes granting Richie immunity in exchange for information on the Harrigans. Tattersall claims a long history with Richie, dating back to 1976. This raises a red flag. When a cop has that kind of familiarity with a criminal, corruption is a real possibility. As suspected, the episode ends with Fisk and Mikasa dead, suggesting Tattersall is still on Richie's payroll and has just eliminated 2 obstacles in one move. Harry's power play. In one of the episode's tensest scenes, Harry meets with Freddy in a parking garage. He's after information on the fentanyl deal between Richie and Jamie. Freddy pulls a gun on him, but Harry calmly warns that Zoja and Kiko are ready to respond if anything goes wrong. Harry learns 3 things. The fentanyl is being sourced from Holland, Archie wasn't betraying Conrad, and a third unknown detail that drives Harry into a rage. He ends the conversation by throwing Freddy off the roof. This act could be seen as Harry doing Conrad's dirty work, but it also positions Harry as someone who could be undermining both sides. Whether he's protecting the Harrigans or preparing to take over is left deliberately ambiguous. The second favor. Later, Harry contacts Kat again. He offers her 50% of the profits from a potential fentanyl deal between the Harrigans and Jamie. Kat agrees, but only after Harry acknowledges that he now owes her 2 favors. What's crucial here is that Conrad never approved this deal. This shows that Harry may be making power moves independently, without the Harrigan's consent. He might be laying the groundwork for a betrayal that's been a long time coming. Bella's secret, Jan's dilemma, and Conrad's schemes. Bella lies to Conrad, saying she has a doctor's appointment in London. In reality, she plans to meet Antoine, a move that could have disastrous consequences. Meanwhile, Jan is pressured by Conrad to arrange a meeting with her police contact, Alice, who may be walking into a deadly trap. Conrad, never one to sit idle, instructs Bella to spy on Kevin and reminds her of her place with a chilling line, "Don't forget who owns you." His manipulative hold over everyone in the mansion continues to tighten. In episode 9 of MobLand, titled Beggar's Banquet, the stakes of the Harrigan family rise dramatically. With pressure mounting from both law enforcement and internal betrayals, the episode functions as a ticking time bomb, drawing the family closer to collapse. As the penultimate episode, it sets the stage for a stormy finale. What makes Beggar's Banquet compelling is its tightrope walk between power and paranoia, betrayal and survival. Richie's masterstroke and Tattersall's trap. At the center of this web of manipulation is Detective Colin Tattersall, whose methodical pursuit of the Harrigans finally bears fruit. Working in tandem with Richie Stevenson, Tattersall's plan to bring down the Empire involves baiting its two most powerful members, Conrad Harrigan, the ruthless family patriarch, and Maeve Harrigan, the cold, calculating matriarch. Richie has managed to sow seeds of distrust throughout the Harrigan circle, using insider information and playing on the family's insecurities. Tattersall meets Alice, who's been working behind the scenes to expose the Harrigans. He encourages her by saying, "How would you like to be the person who put Conrad and Maeve Harrigan behind bars?" Essentially putting her in a pivotal role in this takedown. The dinner trap. Wine, whispers, and watchers. The highlight of episode 9 is a meticulously orchestrated family dinner at the Harrigan mansion. Alice, now fully embedded within the family through her budding relationship with Eddie Harrigan, is invited. The gathering has the air of tradition and family unity, but underneath the surface, it's a trap waiting to be sprung. In a brilliantly tense moment, Alice secretly collects Conrad's wine glass, likely for fingerprint or DNA evidence. Harry D'Souza, ever the watcher, spots her and confronts her subtly. "Can I break your bag?" A quiet but ominous threat that hints he knows what she's up to. This exchange marks a significant shift as Harry starts to question where everyone's loyalties lie. Harry's crisis of loyalty. As the Harrigan fixer, Harry D'Souza has always been the man who operates in shadows, cleaning up the family's messes. But now, he finds himself at a moral and strategic crossroads. Jamie, another significant player in this episode, contacts Harry and hints that a deal could be made if Harry helps neutralize key threats. This cryptic offer suggests that Harry could walk away from the crumbling empire with his hands clean, but only if he plays his cards right. Harry's confrontation with Conrad deepens the tension. "Are you questioning my loyalty?" Conrad asks. Harry, visibly shaken, responds, "I would never do that." But the subtext is clear, trust is running out, and everyone is watching their own back. Maeve's manipulations and Eddie's innocence. Meanwhile, Maeve Harrigan continues her subtle, psychological manipulation of her grandson, Eddie. She paints Alice as an outsider with an agenda, further isolating Eddie and trying to secure his loyalty. But Eddie, still somewhat naive to the family's true nature, remains conflicted. Maeve's relationship with Eddie illustrates a larger theme of the show: how power is preserved through generations, and how even familial love can be weaponized. Bella's shifting allegiances. Another subplot that takes shape in episode 9 involves Bella Harrigan, Conrad's daughter, who has been working behind the scenes with her estranged father, an influential government figure. This revelation complicates the dynamics, as Bella may be positioning herself to survive the fallout, or even seize control of the empire when the dust settles. Her motives remain ambiguous, but her secret meetings and cryptic phone calls hint at a larger play. She's not just another pawn. She may be a queen in waiting. The arrests, the fall of the Titans. The climax of Beggar's Banquet arrives with the arrest of Conrad and Maeve. As they exit the family mansion, the police swarm in. Cameras flash, cuffs click, and the mighty fall in front of their own gate. The arrest is not just a legal blow, but a symbolic one, stripping them of their power, aura, and illusion of invincibility. Their downfall sends shockwaves through the Harrigan ranks. The king and queen are out of play. This move signals the near collapse of the Harrigan Empire, as every loyalist must now decide whether to fight for what's left or flee. Ending explained. What comes next? The ending of episode 9 isn't just about Conrad and Maeve's arrest. It's about what their absence creates, a vacuum. With the heads of the snake cut off, the rest of the body writhes in chaos. Harry is caught between his long-held loyalty and his growing self-preservation instinct. Jamie's cryptic promises dangle a new future for him, but only if he makes a decisive move. Alice, on the other hand, has gone from an outsider to a key catalyst in the family's takedown. But whether she'll survive this dangerous game is unclear. She now carries evidence, knowledge, and agency, but also a big target on her back. Bella might be the sleeper threat. With government connections and a calculated mind, she could seize the remnants of the empire, rebuild it, or destroy it altogether. Her motivations remain a mystery. Meanwhile, Eddie, emotionally torn and lacking clear direction, could become either a victim or a surprise heir to the Harrigan legacy. Much depends on whether he listens to Alice, to Maeve, or to his own conscience. The finale of MobLand Season 1, titled The Beast in Me, is an explosive and deeply personal conclusion to a saga built on betrayal, corruption, and shifting power dynamics. As the veil lifts on long-held secrets and ulterior motives, every character is pushed to their breaking point. Episode 10 is a pressure cooker of emotion and strategy, and it ends with Harry D'Souza's life hanging by a thread. The episode's title and its deeper meaning. The phrase, "the beast in me," perfectly encapsulates what unfolds. The title acts as a metaphor for the inner demons that each character is forced to confront in this finale. For Harry, it's about choosing violence and manipulation to survive. For Jan, it's about letting rage and betrayal explode. For Maeve, it's about the cold cruelty of placing power above loyalty. Each character gives into their beast, leading to tragic consequences. The breaking point between Harry and Jan. Harry D'Souza's story has been one of brutal efficiency and quiet rebellion. Throughout the series, Harry was Conrad and Maeve Harrigan's enforcer, a loyal soldier executing brutal orders. But over the last few episodes, he began taking control of his own narrative, breaking away from the Harrigans and aligning with Cat McAllister in hopes of building a future beyond bloodshed. However, this transformation comes at a cost. Jan, Harry's partner, sees the cracks forming in their relationship. The weight of their criminal life and Harry's emotional unavailability finally causes her to break. In a heart-wrenching argument, Jan accuses Harry of being incapable of normal love, of being consumed by the violence he claims he wants to escape. This confrontation spirals into tragedy when Jan stabs Harry in the chest. We see Harry bleed out, stunned by Jan's action. But the episode ends with Harry still breathing, his fate uncertain but very much unresolved. According to the source, Harry is not dead. He survives the attack, though in critical condition, setting the stage for major consequences in any future season. Maeve's true identity as the family mole. A massive twist in episode 10 is the confirmation that Maeve Harrigan is the mole who has been feeding information to the authorities. Her betrayal wasn't just against her enemies. It was against her own family. The woman who, for years, sat beside Conrad as matriarch of the Harrigan Empire has been working from within to ensure its fall. Eddie, the troubled informant who's been trying to flee this world, confirms this in an emotional confession. He tells Nicola that Maeve is the one who's been passing intel. She's been manipulating events for her own survival, and perhaps even as an act of vengeance against Conrad. This revelation doesn't just serve the plot. It adds emotional weight to Maeve's character. She wasn't just cruel for the sake of power. She was operating with a deeper agenda, one that places her in the same morally gray zone as Harry. Conrad Harrigan, the king brought down. Conrad Harrigan, the cold and calculating patriarch of the Harrigan crime family, has loomed large over MobLand since episode 1. A man of few words but commanding presence, he ran his empire with a combination of brute force and psychological manipulation. However, in episode 10, the empire he built begins to crumble, not by external invasion, but from within. The irony of Conrad's downfall lies in his blind spot, trust in his own wife. Throughout the series, Maeve has stood by his side, offering strategic counsel, cleaning up his messes, and pulling strings in the background. Conrad, ruthless in almost all matters, never suspected her. In fact, when others were being investigated or eliminated as potential moles, Maeve was always the one person Conrad never questioned. That mistake proves fatal. In episode 10, when the walls close in and arrests begin, Conrad finally realizes that Maeve is the one who has betrayed him. This moment isn't played for melodrama. It's devastating in its quiet rage. When he confronts her, there's no shouting, just realization and hurt. Conrad's reaction to Maeve's betrayal is subtle but profound. He doesn't lash out. He doesn't try to kill her. That restraint is perhaps the most revealing part of his character. It's not just shock, it's defeat. After years of manipulating everyone around him, Conrad finally becomes the one manipulated. As he's arrested alongside Maeve, Conrad's face says it all. There's no dramatic resistance, no monologue, just the weight of collapse. A man who once ordered assassinations with a nod is now in handcuffs, brought down by the very person he built his legacy with. But there's a lingering tension here. This is Conrad Harrigan. He may have lost a battle, but is the war over? Men like him don't fade quietly. If MobLand returns for Season 2, Conrad's fate in custody, and whether he finds a way back into the game, could become one of the series' most compelling arcs. His journey in episode 10 closes with no redemption, no revenge, just consequences. A king betrayed not by his enemies, but by his queen. Finale begins with shifting pieces behind the scenes. After Paul escorts Eddie, Bella, Serafina, Jan, and Gina to a forest-safe house, and Kiko and Zoja dispose of Ruspy's body, Harry tracks down O'Hara at the shipping yard. What follows is a quiet but pivotal confrontation. She admits to leaking information to Richie nearly a year ago, originally under the guise of fentanyl discussions. But her betrayal runs deeper. She's effectively handed Richie insider details about the Harrigans' operations, undermining their empire from within. However, the big twist, that O'Hara is the rat, feels more forced than earned. She's a character we barely got to know across the season. With minimal screen time and little emotional weight, her betrayal doesn't shock, it just sort of happens. Kevin, upon learning the truth, doesn't even flinch. Only Conrad shows any real emotion, but he's been too far gone in a fantasy to matter. The twist might make sense logically, but narratively, it fizzles. Kat and Serafina, future threats or empty setups. Back at home, Serafina places a small Greek statue on Conrad's desk, a symbolic gesture that might signal her intentions. Whether it means war, ambition, or rebellion is left to interpretation. Earlier, she shared a cryptic conversation with Kat, who has long been positioned as a dangerous force working in the shadows. But when Harry faces off with Kat, he doesn't blink. He tells her he serves the Harrigans, and always will. For all the build-up Kat received, she's dismissed without consequence. It's another moment where tension could have peaked, but doesn't. If even Kat can't rattle Harry, who can? The double-cross and deaths of Richie and O'Hara. Meanwhile, O'Hara appears to flip again, this time helping Harry. She feeds Richie false intelligence, convincing him to divide his men across 2 locations, her office and the safe house. Richie, bizarrely, trusts her completely, sealing his fate. Paul detonates an explosive at O'Hara's office, wiping out the ambush team. At the safe house, Zoja and Kiko fend off another group, though Kiko dies in the process, one of the episode's rare moments of genuine loss. The survivors flee into the woods, and Zoja leads them to safety in the Cotswolds. As the dust settles, Harry and Kevin invade Richie's base, eliminate his remaining men, and gun down both Richie and O'Hara. While narratively satisfying, the sequence lacks the gravity it should have had. Richie, once a viable underworld threat, is reduced to a gullible pawn, and O'Hara's final moments feel like a box-checking exercise. The underdog story ends not in triumph or tragedy, but in silence. Bella, a quiet player still on the board. Though not directly involved in the action, Bella survives unscathed. That matters. In a world where power shifts violently, her distance may be her advantage. She knows the family's secrets, navigated danger without aligning with any one faction, and could re-emerge later with leverage. She might not draw blood, but she could still draw power. Too perfect. Harry survives yet another showdown without a scratch, physically or emotionally. He returns to Kevin with a fresh recording of Alice, where she admits Conrad and Maeve were framed. Convenient, right? Kevin suggests holding off on freeing their parents to leverage control. Harry agrees, but already he's plotting the next move. He casually mentions finding a new lawyer since O'Hara is gone, because of course in Harry's world, replacements just fall into place. He's bulletproof, emotionally armored, and always 5 steps ahead. But here lies the show's biggest issue. Harry is never truly challenged. What started as a layered anti-hero has become an unstoppable machine, robbing the series of tension. If there's nothing Harry can't fix, where's the suspense? Harry's final position, damaged but alive. Harry's survival is perhaps the most important takeaway from the episode. While he lies on the floor bleeding, his eyes open slightly. His chest is still rising. He is alive, but broken emotionally, physically, and morally. It's a haunting visual. A man who did everything to escape his past only to be dragged back in, betrayed by the one person he thought he could trust. Jan's act wasn't just violent. It was symbolic. She reminded Harry that no matter how far he runs, he can't escape who he truly is. Whether Harry continues to work with Kat or chooses to take revenge on Jan, his journey is far from over. If Season 2 is greenlit, Harry may return more vengeful and more dangerous than ever. After learning the truth, Kevin explodes. He realizes he murdered Archie, his closest friend, because of misinformation. It becomes a moment of emotional combustion where he unloads years of repressed trauma. From Rusby's abuse to his twisted upbringing, from Brendan's neglect to Eddie's erasure as a Harrigan, Kevin lays bare the dysfunction. He calls out Conrad and Maeve not just as flawed leaders, but as disasters who built their kingdom on abuse and chaos. His monologue is a rare moment of unfiltered emotion in a show built on cold strategy. He vows to take the family name and rebuild its legacy, not in Conrad's image, but his own. Still, there's doubt. After everything they've done, can Conrad and Maeve even be sidelined? Or will their madness continue to haunt Kevin's ambitions? Character legacy. Who won the war of reputation? While MobLand thrives on twists, betrayals, and bloodshed, Episode 10 also subtly addresses the legacy each major character leaves behind, not in terms of wealth or territory, but in how they'll be remembered in the underworld they helped shape. Harry D'Souza, once a loyal hitman, emerges as the most morally complex figure. Despite all his violence, there's a tragic nobility in his desire to break free. Yet in the end, his name is left stained by betrayal, from Jan and perhaps from his own conscience. Maeve Harrigan, cunning and cruel, might have earned a brief moment of victory in exposing internal rot, but her legacy is defined by betrayal. Even if she believed her actions were strategic, turning against her own family cemented her fall from grace. Kat McAllister wins the game for now. She played the longest, most patient strategy and walks away as the most powerful woman in MobLand. But legacy is fragile. Will she be seen as a visionary leader or just another cold manipulator? Richie Stevenson solidifies his place as a lethal strategist. He played multiple sides, eliminating threats with precision. While he may never earn love or admiration, His legacy is likely to be feared, a currency as valuable as loyalty in this world. Jan, despite a single act of violence, may go down in MobLand history as the one who broke the beast. Her act wasn't just about rage. It was about severing ties to a world that demanded her silence and suffering for too long. In this battle for control, no one escapes unscathed. Each character's legacy is built on corpses, compromises, and calculated risks. MobLand doesn't just ask who survives, it asks how they'll be remembered. And that wraps up Season 1 of MobLand, a story of blood, loyalty, and revenge where no one is ever truly safe. With Harry's fate hanging in the balance and the power dynamics completely shaken, Season 2 is sure to be explosive. Let me know in the comments. Who do you think will come out on top next season? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss any updates, recaps, and theories. Until next time, stay sharp and stay out of MobLand. Thank you once again for being a part of Flick Flash. Until next time, keep watching, keep exploring, and keep that movie and TV magic alive. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more exciting recaps. This is Flick Flash signing off.